Hello, and hello, ladies and gentlemen from across the world. This is your pal Edwards here out in the Australian forest, drinking a almond chai latte with the amazing Sarah Polyakov and Zev Halpern. Sarah and Zev, how are you guys today? What's going on?
We're good.
We
It's a nice
awesome.
summer day. Summer, towards evening in Washington, D.C. And a
Beautiful.
nice,
Oh,
beautiful day, a beautiful summer day.
We
All no clouds. Beautiful day.
same here. We have a beautiful summer day here in Seattle. No clouds in the sky, and the water is beautiful, except it's 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's very chilly. I don't know what that is in Celsius. I don't do
Sarah
those
looks at Sarah
calculations.
looks at the glistening waters of the Puget Sound. Okay.
I do. I do. I'm half mermaid. Yes, so I live on the glistening
there
waters
we
of
go.
Puget Sound.
There you go.
There we go. Well, love to see you guys. Now, just to our friends around the world, be it LinkedIn or Facebook, great to have you with us. Feel free to like, share, comment. Sarah Polyakov and Zev Halpern are two great friends of ours, and I've known them for many years. And they have a very, very exciting program and community coming up called Your Amazing Edge. Now, they've both written Your Amazing Edge some time ago, which is a really good book talking about your edge and business and life and relationships. And now they've got this new program coming out. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Sarah today. Sarah, you've got the book already. Sarah, ladies first,
Yes.
over to you. Tell us all about Your Amazing Edge, and then we'll hear from Zev.
Okay, so it all started with this book called Discover Your Amazing Edge. And what is Your Amazing Edge about, really? It's about turning your adversity into that very thing that fuels you. So instead of the next time you get fired by a boss, or a relationship breaks up, or something horrible happens in your life, you turn that into fuel for adversity, and you overcome adversity that way. That is the premise of Your Amazing Edge.
Oh, brilliant. And Zev, love to hear your thoughts.
The whole thing came about really because Sarah and I in our lives were through some adversity
Yeah.
in different aspects of our life, serious ones, ones that really
Yeah.
you go in the dark and you come out. Hopefully you're searching for the light, and I think I found the light, and it was helpful. And somehow Sarah and I, over LinkedIn, over that, yes,
That's what's
Yeah.
amazing.
we grieved a
Yeah.
little together, and then
Yeah.
we wrote a book about the power of adversity and how our biggest challenges, and when they're right in front of your nose and you can't even see anything, they
Mhm.
they're like a resource inside of you that if you uncover it and you're able to access it, without all kinds of turbulence, it's like a power grid, and it
Mm.
supercharges you into something a little different than what you were, because that's really who you are. Something that you've been
Mm.
covering up, the thing that you really didn't want to show, um, for reasons, because that's the way you grew up, or events and circumstances wove their crazy path that all of us face. You too, Edward Zia. You're a person who's been through adversity in your life. I
Mm.
know that. I respect you for that, and I understand that, and it comes across in your passion. You can't have that kind of passion if you don't understand diversity.
Mm.
Adversity.
And your depth of character. You have a tremendous depth of character and warmth about you because you've lived it. You've come out the other side, and we love you for it.
And the
Oh.
amazing edge is really, it's about setbacks. You don't
Mm.
want to look at it as adversity. You don't want to put that label on yourself. Well, go lighter, and it's a setback, and
Yeah.
that setback. Go ahead,
If I
please.
can, if I can react to that, and I've been having this discussion a lot lately, which is why I'm so pumped to be on the stream with you guys. And 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 if it's all right, I won't be controversial for the sake of it, but I'll also be honest as well, right? If I can. You meet people, right, that always have a problem, right? They're always complaining. They always have a problem, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? And what happens is, and I've noticed this a few times, you tolerate them 3 or 4 times, but once you hit time 5 and 6, you get sick of that same tune they're always playing. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I think
Yeah.
there's a fairy tale about that, isn't it? It's called something called Somebody Cried Wolf. Is that what? Is there something
Yeah.
about? You know,
We call
it's
them
kind of like,
pity
Yeah.
parties.
doesn't pack the same punch.
Pity
Yes.
parties.
It's because it's been rebooted. A lot of times.
yes. Yes.
Someone's
Sorry, Sarah.
always in distress all the time. Always. You talking about
Yeah. And it's not that they're always in distress, and this is the key distinction. What I love you, this is where I'm going, right? Is you'll meet people that are always in distress, always have a problem, and every time you see them, they just dump negative energy on you, right? And we know people like that. And then you meet people who are actually going through way more adversity, but they're actually positive and making it all happen. And I found this sort of duopoly quite interesting. Sarah and then Zev, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one because it's a very interesting character trait you see between people.
People get used to, they step into their problems. It becomes very familiar to them. It's almost like their friend. It's not a positive friend, it's a negative friend, but it's a friend nonetheless. And because of it's so familiar, they rely on it. And there's a piece of them crying out for help. You know what I mean? If they're doing that to you, they're certainly crying out for help, but they're also, it can be used as a manipulation tool, to bring attention, to the person that you want to, attention from. But that's really, there's always a message beyond the message. The message beyond this message is, I'm hurting, I'm messed up, because otherwise, I wouldn't be telling Edward Zia every time I saw him about my freaking problems. If I had something positive in my life, I might tell him, "Hey, Edward, guess what happened to me?" But some people, they function in darkness because that's what they recognize. That's their home, and that's why transformation is so important. You can't go through there has to be a window has to open. There has to be some light. I mean, you can't function in the dark.
No.
And then all of a sudden, somebody plops a positive thing in your brain. All of a sudden, the window opens, and maybe you, if you're brave, or you have a little more courage, then you have a love for your problems. You might float up in the balloon, to the positive side, and think about what there's another life for me, and I next time I go to Edward Zia, I'm going to tell him what a blast I had on this trip I took, wherever I went, and after I tell him, he's going to say, "Oh God, who lit a fire under that person?" Right?
Oh, I like it. Sarah, what do you think?
Well, I would say that some people don't know how to outlive their pain. Literally outlive it. They don't have to. They haven't been thrown the rope. They haven't possibly grown up in an environment where they were given tools, or perhaps they grew up in an environment where everything was seeing that glass half empty. And that's how life functions. So everything in their world is pessimistic. And sometimes I've met people where even if you point out something's really good that happens to them, for example, something really good happens to that person, I've noticed that sometimes they will downplay that, which is interesting. And I don't know if you've come across that, Ed, and if that was even in part of your question. But there's a personality type that I've noticed. And I don't know what to say about that specifically. Because
I think where I'm going, Sarah, and this feeds into your amazing edge and the great work that you guys do, and looking forward to hearing more about your program, is that you'll have, I often find you have two types of people. You have types of people, which exactly as Zev said, they live in the darkness all the time. They identify themselves with their problems. And then you have people that arguably have more problems than the other person, but they identify themselves with the solution and the way forward. And at least my interpretation of what you guys do is you shift people from the negative identity to the positive identity. That's at least what I think about what you guys do. What do you think of that, Sarah?
Yes, that's exactly what we do. And the core of it is the person who comes to us for assistance and mentoring needs to want to change, because sometimes people get so comfortable in that negative mindset and they don't even realize it themselves. Right?
I think also if you could bottle transformation, you could go to the store and buy transformation in a bottle. I mean, I think it would be at like a high seller. I think people would people would buy the shit out of it, to tell you the truth. And that there'd be lines around the block. It'd be like, forget about it. They could charge a lot, but because we don't have that, people like me and Sarah and others recognize that people need they need the support. They don't have clarity. They're trying to do it alone, and it's weighing them down, and they can't. They're stuck. They're stuck, and they don't have stepping stones. And that's what we do. We create stepping stones. People always go, "Hey, leave your comfort zone. You got to leave your comfort zone." Blah blah blah. You know what? You got to leave your comfort zone at a pace that you can end up doing it. Because for a lot of people, they're very scared, to leave their comfort zone. And you need some courage, and you need some bravery, but you also need some guidance and some stepping stones. You don't have to cross the thing. You don't have to go across the Rubicon in one thing. You could get one of those, boats. They got a thing called a boat, or you could build stepping stones so that you get yourself across in a way that it didn't scare the crap out of you, and you didn't have to go through and that's that's the psychology behind what we do. That everybody has a pace, and people are hurting and they want to succeed, and people are in relationships and they want their relationships to be better. Some relationships can be saved, some they can't be saved.
Yep.
Just as a joke, we were going to talk about intimacy, and Edward had set this up because Sarah and I deal a lot with that. We deal a lot with relationships, people with their intimacy, and how frustrated they are, and Viagra, and just put it all. Put it all on that game board of, people in their relationships, and, cross over into the intimacy side. And you got, the bed's rocking or the bed isn't rocking. The people are turned off or they're not. They're yelling, not a good sign, because, and a lot of people are. And, yelling is fright. It's frightful. I mean, do you like people yelling at you? I don't like people yelling at me. It's not very comfortable, even though, they might be trying to send another message. It isn't getting through. All that's happening is a deer in a headlight. And so these are the kinds of things we deal with. We have two paths, because we wrote the book on, the whole, success side of your life, looking for the success you're looking for. But we have huge relationship experience. Sarah with infidelity has dealt with many couples with that. Myself with intimacy and that. So that's the one. So we have these two tracks. A lot of people say, don't have two tracks, because, you got to have one thing. But Sarah and I, guess what? We got two things. You know, we have
Yeah. But,
Two
and,
of us.
and just on that, life doesn't work in one track because at the end of the day, let's say we've got to deal with 8 things at once in life, right? And I couldn't agree with you more. And I love how you guys are sort of, I suppose, cutting through the BS and getting to it. So, Sarah, I want to ask you, amazing Sarah, what are your thoughts about transformation? And I love where Zeb's going.
So let's see. Transformation is a process. And well, I like what Sally is saying here. Thank you, Sally.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
not
Sally Jones, you're
Yeah, hi,
awesome. We
Sally.
love you, Sally Jones.
Yeah, it's not always an easy process. I love that. And this is exactly why we are here for you. So, why is transformation so hard sometimes? It's because of how our brains are wired. If we think negatively long enough, our brain will literally wire itself to be negative, right? That's neuroscience. And in fact, it takes 30 to 60 days to form a new habit. You have to do, if you want a new habit, you need 30 to 60 days of repeating that habit before the brain catches on. And so,
if I can react to that, if I can just react to that, Sarah, and I was thinking about this, I was actually thinking about this chat the other day. So I'm just jumping in real quick and we'll continue with your train of thought. So what happened to me was a year or two ago, my health got a bit out of control and I put on a lot of weight and not the healthy, fit and handsome and humble person I am now. And what was interesting is I remember when I left the gym environment for a few years, which was a big mistake. As I got back into it, the first 30 to 60 days was a nightmare. But then once across 90 days, I was just so comfortable with it. So it's funny how you say that, Sarah. When we start something new, our poor brain can be struggling a bit, but once we get into it, it becomes quite familiar. So yeah, please carry on, Sarah. I just want to add that bit to where you're going. I love it.
And I love that story that you told because that's exactly what happens. And that's the key to transformation is sometimes your brain can't do it alone. And so you need some mentors to take you through it. It's kind of like if you want to climb Mount Everest, somebody hires a Sherpa, right?
Yeah.
They hire a Sherpa to guide them so that they can reach that goal.
And on that really important point of navigation. You know, it's about, I mean, our lives have a lot to do with, you know, our ability to navigate bumps in the road, things coming at us emotionally, physically, challenging. And I think that people need help with, you know, and navigation's a big thing. Everybody's trying to find out where everybody is. You know, they got every high-tech tool that tells you exactly where you are. You know, you can be in the bathroom. You know, I mean, checks a little too much there. But the point is that people are looking to point themselves in a direction, and some of them are stuck in the quicksand and they just can't do it. Whatever issue it is in their life, whether it be, you know, this relationship issue or they're finished with a relationship and they're trying to rebuild. You know, separation and divorce recovery, that's a tough deal. Or they're just, you know, mired and they can't get the success they want. They're looking for the breakthrough and the breakthrough ain't happening. And you know, many people like that. And so do we. And because there are many people like that, and you don't have to be that way. You know, there is a positive place you can go. I would say there are many positive places you can go, but you have to get there. And it's okay to like grab a rung, you know, ask for a little help along the way, so that you can really be yourself. Tell somebody or two people who you really are. You know, what do you want to do? You know, and where are you trying to go? And people, those are basic questions. But you know, you need a map. You know, that's the map of your life. You know, or you know, the answer to those questions. And people have bad role models. You know, they're traveling along this road. You know, some pretty improper guidance. You know, they're not going to make it. They're not going to make it. Some of them, you know, they're not going to make it.
So I got a good one, and this is one of the themes I wanted to get into is intimacy, because a lot of you guys, you do a mixture of business and personal coaching, and intimate and relationships, and intimacy is a cool thing. And I'll tell you why I'm bringing up intimacy, right? That's why I was originally leading with that. And I live in Sydney, right? I live in Sydney, which actually has Sydney is one of the most expensive cities in Australia. And unfortunately, in the city I'm in, we're going through, much like you guys in America did a few years ago, we're going through a lot of political change and upheaval in Sydney, much like when your government changed a few years ago, right? And what's interesting is that a lot of surveys have come out that Sydney is actually becoming one of Australia's most unhappiest cities, right?
Oh.
Because of all the pressure and life that we have. And the reason why I'm saying this, one of the drivers of that is a lot of people in Sydney are experiencing a real lack of intimacy. So people of all ages, all genders, whatever, a lot of people have a real lack of intimacy for a lot of reasons. And that has been identified as one of the drivers of that. So I want to bounce back to Sarah. What do you think of intimacy in life and everything I'm saying about Sydney? Because not just, especially in our city, lack of intimacy and unhappiness is becoming quite the issue. Sarah, then we'll bounce back to Zeb.
Well, intimacy is core to our lives because we are wired for connection. And right now, we are in a world where we are disconnected due to having all these relationships online. There are people, husbands and wives, who will sit in the same room and they would rather text each other than speak to each other face to face. So this is a huge intimacy problem. And intimacy is not just about sex. It's about that deep, meaningful connection that humans require as much as they need air and water. So if we don't have it with our spouse, with our partner, with our friends, with our family, an essential part of what we need to thrive in life is gone. So how do we function? And that is driving the unhappiness that you speak of. And it's very sad. And I've heard about the bridge in Sydney from one of my former clients, actually. She lived near that bridge in Sydney, and she referenced it as a place where people sadly go when they're unhappy. I don't know the name of the bridge, but she referenced it to me.
It's fascinating that, because this is sort of one of the key things is, and these are actually some of my talking points, and bring it back to your amazing edge, is lack of connection, lack of intimacy, the stress that we're feeling in this world, because especially in the world that I live in, and I love that distinction you made. It's not about sex, intimacy. You can have sex without being intimate. We're talking about those deep sort of personal connections that drive us in business and life. So I love where you're going. And Zev, I can see you about to jump out of your chair. What are you thinking?
No, I mean, the thing is that just the intimacy, people are, excuse my expression. I mean, people are banging their devices. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The sound is so loud. There's a lot of noise, and there's political noise, which has also intersected with intimacy. Usually when politics intersects with intimacy, you think that some kind of scandalous thing happening in the halls of justice and Congress. But now it's got to do with choice of, whether you're attracted to somebody. Your instinct, boy, he looks good. All of a sudden they tell you what their politics are, and people go absolutely berserk out of their minds. And then afterwards, we now have this resource, that we can go yell at. We can take all our whatever, all our anger and all our frustration out and yell into these devices. And we don't even have to talk. We can to the world, hey world, what I think, isn't that what you see, on social media? I mean, Edward Zia, about social media.
Oh, yes.
It's a crucible, a melting pot, and also volatile. It's a volatile place.
Zev, can I tell people about the Cyber Screamer feature that we have on our website?
Yeah, please. I'd love to talk about that.
So Cyber Screamer is our mascot. He is actually Zev's brainchild.
From 1995.
Is it Sev's alter ego? But we can't say that, right? Big
I
big no.
can say whatever. Hey, Edward, you could say whatever I want. That would just make me, like a deeper, stronger person.
Exactly.
Love it.
So we have Cyber Screamer, who was our mascot, and Cyber Screamer
Cyber Screamer.
now has a Screamette, his partner, and they also have a couple of dogs modeled after one of my dogs named Arrow and Zev's dog, Jazzy. So anyhow, we have a page on our website where people can go and they can scream it out with Cyber Screamer. So if they have something that they want to rant about, there's actually a place where they can type out their rant and they can send it into the stratosphere without any human being receiving it. Even we don't receive it. So it's completely confidential. And there's another spot on that Cyber Screamer page where if somebody's feeling really angry or tense, they can click a button and then it counts down from 10 to 1 while they take a really deep, refreshing breath. And so that is kind of a cool, unique feature that we've got on the website.
Cyber Screamer came out of the late 90s. And then I mothballed it. I mothballed Cyber Screamer and brought it back. And it's kind of the response.
Was perhaps when you created Cyber Screamer, was Cyber Screamer perhaps ahead of his time, but now the times have caught up to Cyber Screamer?
I'd like to think sometimes I'm a little ahead of my time. I felt that way sometimes when I've told people some things, and the shock and awe, that they had. Oh my God! But it perhaps, Cyber Screamer. I think, personally, I think there was a whole website called Cyber Screamer, and it was ways that you could communicate in all different kinds, get out your stuff. That's where I was coming from. The whole idea of a regulation, which is so important now. People have so much trouble regulating.
If I can just jump in there, and this is actually one of so just so you know, I've got a whole list of talking points which I'm going through, which I deliberately didn't tell you guys because I wanted to see your authentic reaction. So, but actually, emotional regulation is actually one of the things I want to talk about. Because what we see, and I'm going to sound like an old man now, which I am, emotional regulation is not a virtue we see much of in this world. It's a very emotional world, a very reactive world. And I really have been seeing this as well, in that people's emotional regulation has not been helping them, be it they're sad all the time, they can't get out of it. They're erratic all the time, they can't stop. They're chaotic, they can't stop. So I want to bounce back to Sarah. Sarah, I want you to give us a good monologue on your thoughts on emotional regulation and also tell us how you help with emotional regulation too.
Oh my goodness. Emotional regulation, once again, is about changing the brain. And it also is impacted by the type of emotional regulation or dysregulation that we are talking about. So if somebody is quick to anger, that you have to treat that from an entirely different place than if somebody's sad. So if somebody's quick to anger, what's interesting is anger is a secondary emotion. Underneath it is usually fear. So when somebody's yelling, that's a secondary emotion, and it's generally fear that's underneath that. So you're going to help that person regulate by pinpointing that fear that's underneath it. And most people aren't even aware of what that fear is because it could be buried very deep. So we would take one approach with somebody like that because it's about regulating, pinpointing the root, and then teaching ways to regulate those emotions. Where if somebody is sad, I would actually ask them to talk to a therapist as well to see if there is an actual problem such as clinical depression, right? So talk therapy is so helpful with clinical depression. We are not talk therapists, so to speak. We're coaches. But I would ask them to explore something with a talk therapist and possibly a doctor to see if something deeper is going on there. And then we would kind of be the people who help out on the side, right? So that's the distinction, is we're not quote therapists, we're mentors and coaches. And so we
Yeah.
would ask that person to find a primary care provider, and then we would give them the adjunct treatment that they might need, or the coaching that they might need to enhance whatever is being given to them professionally.
So to me, people need a toolbox. You need tools to self-regulate, and everybody can have different ones as long as it works. It's not like there's some kind of encyclopedia of tools for self-regulation. I haven't seen one, but it might be a good book. Personally, now that I think about it, it might be a real good book. But all of us self-regulate in different ways, affirmations, all kinds of things. I mean, there's so much. We live in a world, where there's so many opportunities, distractions, but opportunities to develop tools. And people a lot of times can't do that on their own. And the people closest to them are not the best counsel,
So what would so just on that,
about, hey,
just on,
how do I self-regulate? Because they might lead you astray.
Yeah. Just on that one, I want to pinpoint on the anger one, because I see a lot of people, and I see this all the time in my world, right? So we got clients all across the world in Australia, and quite often I see a lot of people, they'll blow up and get angry on me for, it's nothing to do with me. They'll blow up and get angry on me only to apologize later and want to take everything back. And this happens to me quite a bit. And what I found interesting is that I'll have people who are angry or blow up on me, and then I push back on them. And you know what happens when I push back on them? Quite often they have some kind of mental breakdown. They have some kind of emotional failure. And it's funny, I never ever thought of it that way, is a lot of people who are angry and quick to anger, it seems to me they're only a step away from some kind of emotional breakdown. And you're right, it's that sort of fear, and they know they're close to emotional breakdown, has created that defensive matrix. I want to bounce back to Sarah. What do you think of that one? Because I see quick to anger all the time. I deal with that a lot with people all the time.
Oh my gosh. So yes, if somebody's quick to anger, that's a type of defensiveness or offensiveness or whatever you would like to call it, because they are covering for something. It's some kind of coping mechanism. That anger would be a coping mechanism. And if they're taking it out on you, I'm guessing that they would rather be taking it out on the person who actually made them angry, but that person doesn't make them feel safe. So here comes Ed, who makes them feel safe. And they can displace that anger right onto Ed. You're not
similar. It's similar to what people do in their relationships. They do that in their relationships because they wouldn't do it to their boss. They wouldn't do it to their, because the fear, they'd have a fear. But they would do it because they're low risk. I'm not saying you're low risk, because the good thing about you is you push back.
I do all the time.
Pushing back is a lesson. You're a teacher, you're a mentor. So you're just trying to teach them. They don't know that, but you know that. And you're trying, to teach them, hey, no, you can't come and because the truth is, if they're doing it to you, they're doing it to other people that don't have the skills to push back or to set up a boundary, and those people are getting hurt, and there's trickle down craziness going on, and somebody has to, and there needs to be a referee, but there aren't referees, although we might soon be living in a world with referees. I don't know.
On that note, I got something funny to tell you guys, and don't tell anyone this. And so anyone watching this live stream, don't tell anyone. But long story short, some years ago, we had problems with this person at one of our meetups, and they were a client of a client, right? So it was a bit messy there, and they were one of the most narcissistic, entitled people I've met in a long time. All right, and they were so narcissistic they were just in your face saying crazy stuff to you, like, I'm really, like, they literally would look you in the eye and say things like, I'm really amazing. I should be getting more out of life. They were very much in their face. That was interesting. Is the other day, Lassie and I.
Didn't you want to send them to the planet narcissism? Go gather with all these people, and you can tell them all about how great you are and how perfect life is when it's not. When it's not, and the grief that you're causing all these other people.
Now, what was interesting is the other night, Lassie and I saw this article in the mainstream news written about them, about how they've been ripping off all these people and left this trail of destruction. And it was absolutely, it was sadly hilarious, because what was funny is exactly what you said. This person, very narcissistic. It's all about them. I'm sure anyone watching knows what I'm talking about. And they gave me a hard time, and I always poke back, right? Which is just, which is what I'm really good at. But what's interesting is that exactly what you said, this person treats everyone the same way, and they've left quite the trail of destruction. But what's happened is Captain Karma has caught up with them. They're now permanently memorialized by the mainstream news as being some kind of lunatic. So I want to bounce back to Sarah on this one. Sarah, tell me more about this one. I can see you about to jump out of your chair, Sarah. You look like you're about to explode with some insight.
I have a similar story.
Please, shoot.
Okay, let's see.
Tell us.
I need to tell this story in a way where I'm not.
But you won't get us sued. You won't get us sued. You won't kill our live stream. Yes, please. Please don't get us sued.
Where I won't get sued. That's exactly the point. So, the reason, one of the reasons that I work with infidelity is because I experienced it in a very serious relationship. A very serious relationship, all right? And it nearly broke me at the time. It truly, let's just say that. Well, I always wondered if that would ever catch up to him. And there's a guy, you probably heard of him, Guy Kiyosaki. Have you heard of the influencer Guy Kiyosaki? Okay, he's an American.
I know Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite books. So Guy Kiyosaki is a business influencer.
Yep.
And several years later, he asked, this was on his webpage, he asked people to submit stories about the people who gave them the hardest time at work. And there was my ex's name. And I knew, I knew yes, the person even said exactly what he did to her at work, so I knew who it was. It was anonymous, but I knew who the person was who would have submitted that. So, and I thought, and it was there for a good 2 years. I thought, I know he's going to go and sue that guy for having that on his website, and it was there for a good 2 years. But it actually caught up to him, and I was so shocked.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes what goes around comes around, but not always. Sometimes it takes a while, or it doesn't happen, and we have to move on. On.
Now, one thing I want to say about this is on my list as well, and I want to see what you guys think of this one. Is you give back what you put out, and I've seen this happen a lot. People who give out negativity are like our friend, like both Sarah and our friend, right? And again, sorry to hear that, Sarah, and thanks for your share. But you meet people that all they do is leave a trail of destruction and just put out bad stuff. And it does eventually catch up with them. And likewise, I see the opposite is true. The people that put out all the positive vibes, they build a really, really good community around them. And I want to bounce over to you, Sarah, because what's interesting about Amazing Edge is that you guys coach people, but also it's a community as well. I want to sort of explore the community aspect of how this all works. And we'll start with you, Sarah, then we'll head over to Zev. But Sarah, please tell us more about your Amazing Edge community, what we're putting out and how it all comes together.
Sure. So let's try to do the Reader's Digest version. We will be launching a Mighty Networks community soon, where people will have the opportunity to talk to each other, much like Facebook. And we have something in there where people can complain. It's called the Bitch and Moan Zone. That's one of my favorite little spots in our Mighty Networks. People can go to our content libraries and they can read all they want about professional. If they're on our professional track, they can read all they want about professionalism. If they're on our relationship track, they can read about relationships, but they can also engage with each other in these groups. They can attend live seminars with us. They can book one-on-one coaching with us. And we're really trying to build a solid community of people where they can network with each other, share stories, perhaps become friends, lift each other up. So that is the gist of what we're doing. And of course, people can always buy the one-on-one coaching with Zev and I, but we really want a community where people can be upheld by others and also upheld by us, because we will be engaging with them as well.
Because it's about connections, and the ones we don't have, in the world that we live in today. And this is about prompting people, because people need to be prompted a bit to move themselves in the direction of connectedness. And once they do that, they'll begin to find, through these prompts, activities and things, that they have amazing things in them, things they never thought possible, and speak their truth. Say whatever it is that you want to say, and find a way to move in the direction that you're trying to get to, whether it be on a relationship improvement track, or a success track, meaning you're not getting the success and you're looking for ways to get there. And there's all kinds of different, as Sarah said, some webinars and seminars, and but the thing that got me about it are the prompts that people really do these days, because there's so much noise. Nice community prompts that spread positivity without being corny and without being, it's the truth. There's a tremendous amount of negativity in the world every day. It's spewed into how could it not? It lands, it's like paintball. We think only the people who are go to play paintball get stuff all over them. We get it all. If you go on social media, you could get splattered, with negativity, and you could lose yourself. I certainly have sometimes. I see things hateful, incredible. Beyond hateful. I'd say they went past hateful a long time ago, and they're into other things. And
on a note of amusement there, which I think you'll like, Zev and Sarah, is so we live, and again, I don't mean to be political. I'm talking about politics neutrally to make a different point. So we're active in local politics, and we run our local political branch in the party we're in, which happens to be called One Nation, which is kind of like, you would say, a MAGA-ish sort of party in American terms, right? So think of me as like a right-wing Republican in your language, right? That's basically sort of us. And what's interesting about it is that
where's your red hat? Where's your red hat?
Yeah, unfortunately, in our country, red means the lefty. So if I wear a red hat, it actually means the bag. Yeah, so if I wear a red hat here, everyone will think I'm a socialist commie, right? Which is certainly not the case. Now, but I do have a blue hat on. I do have my local hat on today. So the interesting part is that Lassie and I, especially Lassie, so we've been trolled a lot on Facebook for the political views that we're representing. And now what's interesting is that we've had people troll us and we've blocked them, right? We've blocked them. And then what they do is they try to find other ways to get through to us. So we've had people troll Lassie, and then Lassie blocks them, and then they try and speak to me to keep trolling Lassie. And where it gets even funnier is that, and I'm a pretty big guy. I'm only 6 feet tall. I weigh about 220 pounds. I hit the gym 7 times a week, right?
Yeah, but these people are like blockade busters. In the blockade,
what's funny is when I see them in the street, which I do, they just look at me and run in the other direction. I think you're right. I think that keyboard warrior culture, it wouldn't happen face to face. So the internet gives that weird, almost force multiplier of
permission.
Yeah. Where the shit people, they won't say it face to face.
They give themselves permission to scream at all these people and spread hate. That's what they
Yeah.
do.
Sure. But when you see them face to face, especially when they see me face to face, they sort of run into an alley and try and get away as I stare at them. So I want to bounce back to Sarah, actually, and this is a key part about community. It's actually one of my talking points, is that we all have, at times we can have negative people in our lives. The people we have in our lives, especially negative people, can make us feel more negative. Sarah, how do we deal with negative people in our lives? And how do we create more positive people in our life to take us in the direction we want? Tell us a bit more about that, Sarah.
So, how do we deal with negative people? That would depend on boundaries and what kind of boundary you want to set with that person. So, do you want that negative person in your life? That's the first question. Yes or no?
Full stop. Full stop. Yeah. Yes or no? Do you want them in?
Do you want the negative person in your life still? I mean, do you want that person in your life? That's the first question.
Well, the easy answer is, I'll give you the easy answer is, here's the thing. If you don't want someone in your life, it's easy. You just block them and delete them. Like, that's easy, right? I think the nuance and the difficulty is, what if they're like your sister, your brother, your partner? What if it's your boss? What if it's someone you can't simply just block? How do we deal with that sort of nuanced area?
Gray rock. That is not my term. That is a term that another website developed, but it basically means that when they get into that negative zone, you become really boring. You become so boring that they just
do that.
They don't want to talk to you because they're just like, okay, because they usually want a reaction. That's what I found. Even if they're not intentionally wanting a reaction, some of them would very much like a reaction. And so if you become really boring, they just don't want to talk to you anymore.
Oh, does grey rock also mean stonewall, where you just basically turn into you basically just don't react? Is that what you kind of mean?
Stonewalling is just completely shutting somebody out. It's like putting your hands up, stay away. Grey rock is just being really boring and non-reactive. That's literally what it is.
And it would transform digitally because you put a stop on people. You've been on the threads. If you've been angry, the threads go long and long and long. No, why should they? If someone throws a piece of hate at you, let it go. You already scored your touchdown. If they did that, if what you ever said, to them, and they reacted in that way, there's nothing you could say to convince them stronger than you already are by just being quiet, because there's a power in silence, and especially on the internet, there's a power to it. People, tell me that some of the texts that you've gotten haven't been to get you riled up and get you ready to, and tell me that your blood didn't boil. Mine does. My blood boils at some of the stuff that I see, but the point was already scored. It would be like, doing the touchdown again. You scored. The guy, whoever it was, is pissed off out of their minds. They understand where you are. You don't need to tell them anything else. If you do, you're just weakening your position every time you respond.
So I like that. So just as a recap, there's toxic people and dealing negative people is obviously a very core topic, and you guys are great dealing with. So you're saying two things. We're saying three things. One is, if there's someone negative in your life and you don't need them and you don't want them, you just block them and kick them out. That's actually quite easy. With the nuanced situations, you have moves like, I like that grey rock. You just become a neutral, boring character and bouncing onto you, Zev, I like what you're saying is you just don't react. You don't react. You don't, even if they trigger you emotionally, you don't let that show and you don't give them that validation. Is that what you kind of mean, Zev?
I do, because we don't have these things. If we had a scale, where we could say, let me see, our sister is making us crazy, and how much is it weighing us down? And you put it on that scale, and the scale goes a lot. It just says a lot.
Yep.
It doesn't need to say anything more than that, but we don't have that. So I think we need people to help us gauge those kinds of things, because it's hard to gauge it yourself when you're so caught up. I mean, you can't see the forest from the trees. So you have to set up some kind of either have an exterior gauge, that tells you, I don't think you should take any more of that shit, that you're taking.
Yeah.
I don't think you should, I'm not sure, I'm not trying to mind your business now, but,
Yeah.
this is just a heads up, here's what's going on. Here's how much of your life is being taken away. There's a chapter in our book about this, that talks about people in our lives close to us that we have to sometimes say, what, full stop here. I'm not going any further with this. Take your position, and move forward, because it's just, how can you do it? And you're not helping them. You're not helping them, anymore, because you can't do it. You basically, you've helped them to the point, especially if you're sitting there like, going crazy from it. You've done enough, but you have to gauge it. And, again, they don't sell the weight, this instrument at the store. There's another product that we hope, maybe they might invent. It would save a lot of, downtime.
Oh, love it. Love it. Now, what we're doing is, friends, we've had a great discussion with Sarah Polyakov and Zev. We're going to wind up this live stream in a few minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to bounce over to Sarah and then Zev and sort of get a closing monologue from them. So I'd love to hear, we'll start with Sarah. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the live stream, share some more ideas, and also tell us about your program and community coming out and how people can get started, and then we'll bounce back to Zev on that one. So Sarah, over to you. Please give us a legendary Sarah-esque monologue.
Oh my gosh, you've set me up for something that I don't know if I can deliver, but I will try.
No,
Thank you.
No, you are awesome. I will not hear that negative self-talk, Sarah. No, you are awesome.
See, even the coach needs a coach, which is one of the many reasons we love Ed.
Don't we all? Because me too. Don't we all? Don't we all?
He's a natural coach. I mean, look at this. He's amazing. He lifts people up wherever he goes. And this is one of the many reasons we love him. So about our community, we will be releasing some links soon where people can join the Mighty Networks community and they can see what's in there. But we also have another place on our website where they can take a relationship assessment and they can take a professional assessment, depending on what they want, and they can get feedback immediately on their specific situation from those assessments. And they can also book a call with us if they would like from those assessments. So stay tuned for that Mighty Networks link. That's going to be one of the main ways that people can get in.
And also too as well, Sarah, what do you think, from our discussion today, any additional thoughts or ideas you want to share with us to help us all build our amazing edge?
I do. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this community that we are building. We didn't build it just because. There are many people out there who have their circle groups or their Mighty Network groups or their school groups, on and on. We wanted a safe harbor for people, a safe harbor where people can share what they're going through, get real supportive help from us and from other kindred spirits. And if they're professionals, even looking for jobs, I want people to even be able to say to other professionals in the group, hey, I really need to network because this is what I'm looking for. This is my skill set. I want people to be able to state that openly, rather than having people say, oh, I don't want to hear about that. I want people to be able to network and cross-share information so that they all become successful and within this safe environment. That's one of the many reasons we decided to go with this group.
Ooh, very nice.
I think a lot of people, there's a lot of people who they're in a class and they're afraid to raise their hand. There's a lot of people who are afraid to raise their hand, more people than you think. And the reason they're afraid to raise their hand is because of some event in their lives that would have affected them in some kind of way. I'm not going to try to label them in any kind of way, but I think that's who we're looking for. People who, you can raise your hand at your amazing edge because we know you have one. And you don't know that, but we know that. And we're going to find a way to draw it out of you. And while you do that, it's not going to be this unpleasant experience because you'll find some warmth and you'll find some guidance, and you'll most importantly, you'll find your way, which is what all of us are trying to freaking do, right? In the world. And it's a windy road. It's a windy road, and clowns jump out, in front of us, and
Killer clowns
scare us to death, and other things, along the journey, that thwart our progress. And of course, we don't raise our hands. We're like, don't raise your hand. Because if you do, it's like a target on your back.
One of my own issues that I've really been, and it used to be one of my big issues I really took head on a few years ago, is I was brought up in a very, how dare you complain? You should be independent. You just got to, sweat it out, right?
Man up. Man up.
Yep, man up. Yep, man up. Thank you. Man up. And for me, asking for help is like, and I do it easily now. I sort of reduce the size of the chip on my shoulder, but I used to be very much, you can't ask for help. If you ask for help, it's a sign of weakness. And ironically, I have found the opposite to be true. Not asking for help is a sign of stupidity and incompetence. And I sort of had to really face that. It was about 2 or 3 years ago to face that side of me saying, you know what? I need to ask for help because I can't win on my own. And I find the moment I don't know if anyone's listening shares that chip on the shoulder that I had, but the moment you say, hey, you know what? I'm actually comfortable helping and asking for help. To me, that really kicks, that allows transformation to occur. That's what at least I've experienced.
Because it should be one of the golden rules. There's a lot of golden rules. Can I tell you, I can't think of any right now. But the one I can think about is that it should say in one of those nice little golden children's books, ask for help. Ask for help, from somebody, and make sure the person is worthy, and make sure you're worthy of the whole thing. But ask for help. It's not truthfully, and maybe we could even add something to the men's book, of that side. You could put, it's wuss, you're a wuss, okay? If you don't ask for help.
Yeah. Well, it's stupid. You're dumb.
Everybody's going to suffer around you. It's all messed up. Save the words, take off a little wear and tear from all of us, and help yourself. And you know what? You'll be the happiest person alive. You'll be happier. No question.
And there was some research talking about asking for help. There was some research, and this is the gist of it. It turns out that if you ask somebody for help, you are perceived as more likable, but you also make that person feel good.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win. Everybody wins. There's no reason to stay inside ourselves and to keep it inside. And I'm a mother of 2 boys, and from the time they were young, and if they fell and cried, I said, do you know how brave you are to cry? I said, it is brave for you to share your feelings. And I really honor that about you. I honor that about them to this day. And they're both very sweet. They're both very sweet boys, and they're in tune with their feelings, especially my youngest, I would say, very much.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. And I hear it all the time, like you have like man up, don't be a wuss. And I like the word wuss. That's a very American word that you don't hear a lot down under. But the other side of it is as well, it's the whole,
here in DC, I have.
Wuss. I like it. It's very American. I like it. The other one is as well is the whole, the whole strong independent woman concept. They often make fun of it in Family Guy and South Park and all that. but it's like the whole strong, independent woman thing. And I think this is a real slight against women, and that, it's the whole sort of, more the feminism from like 10, 20 years ago, which is, if you're a woman, you can be strong and independent. You can be a CEO. You can have as many kids as you want. You can work at the gym 4 hours a day. And I find it's that whole sort of, that whole, I need to be independent and strong. That was one of the sort of mental failings that I fell for. But also in Sydney, where I live, I see a lot of people falling for that, especially women. They fall for that strong, independent sort of bait. And they sort of cut themselves off from help and opportunity. I think it's sad. I think it's really, really sad. And if anyone listening is doing it, you should stop it. I did it for a long time and it did not help me.
All right, there's some direction.
Hey, I thought I was that woman for a while. That South Park woman. What is she?
Yeah.
Is she the VP? Is she the VP principal? Is that what she is?
Oh,
there's PC principal, and then there's the VP.
Right, yep. Thank you.
Right?
So you have the principal of South Park, and she's the vice principal, who's strong, independent woman.
She's called Strong Woman. I believe
Strong Woman. There you go.
Yeah, I believe that's her name.
Strong Woman. Yeah.
I thought I could do that until my second was born, and then I realized, no, I'm not that person. And and as a woman, I very much need a family around me, because it helps me emotionally to be part of a family and to be a caregiver and to give and receive love. That actually helps me. Not being have to prove to the world. Brother. So
there you go.
Those people have their frustrations as well, and they can benefit. Just take a little piece of the pie of your life and ask for a little help, get a little support, take a break, from the image, and more respect for you by portraying it, and more power to you. But, take care of yourself. Did you take care of yourself today? I think that's the window that people might be able to escape, because I think it does involve an escape, because there is an element of, you can believe it all you want, but I'm sure from time to time you probably feel trapped. I'm sure that at some point you feel like, I can't get out of this. I have to maintain this image, and it takes a lot to do that. Again, more power to him. Leadership, it takes a lot to be a leader of people and move people in different directions. And sometimes people, they just take that role and they forget about there's another life.
Love it. Solid goal. Well, friends, that brings our live stream towards the end. So just as a recap, please, across the world, especially on LinkedIn, connect with Sarah Polyakov and Zev Halpern, and they have their Amazing Edge book, their community and everything coming up. And I got to say, I'm very excited for you too. And just before we sign off, Sarah, final thoughts from you?
I just wanted to thank you so much for this live stream. It has been incredibly fun, and I hope to see everybody who's listening. I hope to see you come into the group when we will have our free area open to explore. Love to see you there in our safe harbor that we are building, that is full of connection. And if you come, I will dump a ton of love and positivity on you. So be prepared.
We all could use
if you let me.
I want that. We're gonna use lots of Sarah love and positivity on us. And big thank you, Sarah. And Zev, your final thoughts, and we'll finish off there.
I just think it's a good appreciate the opportunity for the three of us to have given a demonstration, of coaching to people, because all three of us have been coached tonight, in all kinds of ways. We learned a lot of things. We heard things. I heard, insights that I'll take with me away from this live stream, because this is what it takes. Coaching is a conversation. Coaching is a dialogue, and it can be done well.
Yeah.
Truthfully, it can also be not done well.
Yeah.
But
But we're not those people. We're the good ones. So there you go. We're the good ones.
it can
We're
be
good.
done well. And again, thanks for the opportunity to
Oh,
to get your insights and to hear us. And I would
Well-
add just one thing, that this thing that we're doing, the youramazingedge.com, it's like a positive hearing. It's an opportunity for you to be heard by two people who are supportive, understanding, insightful, and wise, because we've been in the world, and there's a lot we've experienced, and you can give us stuff as well.
Right.
So I encourage you, to
And you have a second opinion in the room. So many people go to a coach and they're like, this is only part of the puzzle. Well, we're presenting the full puzzle for you here. So that, you literally get the second opinion in the room.
you can also have some fun moving forward. It doesn't have to be a big drag. People often think it's a drag. Nope, it's a relationship, and we look forward to establishing them with you. And
We
thanks, Edward.
very
Thank
nice. With that said, friends, my hat goes on, which means we're going to finish up now. So, friends, stay awesome. Connect with Sarah and Zev. Thank you very much, friends. Like, share, comment, reach out anytime. Bye, all, and keep winning. Love your work, all.